Welcome to Catalyst Conversations, the podcast where we spark powerful change in women's wealth. I'm Hadriana, a wealth coach, counselor, and strategist, and each week we dive into the conversations, strategies, and stories that help women confidently create the life they've always dreamed of. So grab your favorite bevy, settle in, and let's get started on transforming your relationship with money. This is Catalyst Conversations, igniting change in women's wealth. Let's spark the conversation. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Catalyst Conversations, and it is my absolute pleasure to have with us today the one, the only Bruce Sellery, and he is here to share some great insights with us. But first, I asked Bruce to share a personal motto or, some guiding phrases maybe that he has applied. And here's what he shared. And bear with me. I'm reading all of it because it's all so good. Hang on. This is the true joy in life. The being used for a purpose, recognized by yourself as a mighty one. The being a force of nature instead of a feverish, selfish little clod of ailments and grievances, complaining that the world will not devote itself to making you happy. I'm loving this. I am of the opinion that my life belongs to the whole community. And as long as I live, it is my privilege to do for it whatever I can. I want to be thoroughly used up when I die, for the harder I work, the more I live. I rejoice in life for its own sake. Life is no brief candle for me. It is a sort of splendid torch which I have got hold of for the moment, and I want to make it burn as brightly as possible before handing it on to future generations. These lines were put together by George Bernard Shaw. And Bruce, you have chosen this passage almost as a personal motto. Tell me more.
I heard that quote decades ago, and there are so many parts of it that resonate so deeply for me. So being a force of nature is such a call to action for me. We all are dealing with circumstances. They are macro, the economy and the job market and interest rates and the political situation. They are also micro, our intimate relationships, our family, our parents, our kids, our jobs, like very specific. And so I love this idea that I could be like the wind or like the rays of the sun, that I have agency in terms of how my life unfolds. And this is not me all the time. This is me on my best days. And so I see it as a real rally cry. The other word that the George Bernard Shaw quote includes, which resonates deeply for me, is community. So I have, for a very, very long time, really thought about and engaged in and endeavored to harness the magic of community. It's really so extraordinary. And I think we do a very poor job in the area of personal finance, bringing community on side. And when we can and when we do, it makes such an enormous difference to the individuals who live in that community.
Yeah, so well said. So much more happens. You have results that go deeper, that have more profound impact when we work in community. So I'm totally loving that. And I can see that in the work that you're currently doing, which I believe you've been at Credit Canada for a few years now,
Yeah.
correct?
Yeah,
Yes.
almost 4 years, which is unbelievable to me, but it's been almost 4 years.
I think that's testament to a great fit, not
Mhm.
just in your role, but in the atmosphere, the culture of
Mm.
the work that you do there and what Credit Canada is doing. So I'll tell everyone now, Bruce is actually the CEO of Credit Canada, and that business is actually Canada's oldest not-for-profit credit counseling agency. And I can only imagine how many people have been impacted by the work of Credit Canada in all this time. You came to the role after doing a few things. Tell us a little bit about what brought you to this role at Credit Canada.
So I started my career in traditional packaged goods marketing. I worked at Procter and Gamble and I was the brand manager of Royale facial tissue.
Oh, wow.
Soft on the nose, strong for the blows. Yeah. And I worked on Pampers diapers, I sold maxi pads. I knew every single style of always every like night and thins and maxis. I knew all sorts of things about things, you know, I was a 25-year-old gay man selling maxi pads. Like it
Yes,
was
indeed.
absurd. But I had a great time at Procter and Gamble doing all sorts of things. I led all of our diversity and inclusion programs. I led our corporate strategy programs, and then I'll oversimplify it to say I woke up one day and realized that this was not a self expression for me. I enjoyed it. I was well paid. There was lots of opportunity. But when I really, really, in my heart of hearts, considered what I wanted to do, it was to be on television, which is about as egotistical as you could possibly imagine. But that's what I wanted. So I quit my job.
Okay.
And I started really trying to find a place for me to enter into. I had no contacts. I didn't know how to do anything. I got some connections. I was on the air within 4 months at CBC. And then I spent a decade at what became BNN Bloomberg. So I was among the people who launched what was then ROB TV back in 1999, a bazillion
Wow.
years ago, and did that for a long period of time and then decided to make the change to focus on personal finance instead of traditional business news. Wrote a bunch of books, did a reality show on the Oprah Network, and spent 13 years in that world, including professional speaking and financial literacy consulting. And then I got a call from a headhunter, and this has been the perfect job for me.
Wow. Wow. And quite a turn, quite a pivot, the word that no one wants to utter anymore.
Yeah.
Going from sales in, I guess, personal care products, let's do
Yep.
it easy, all the way through to television personality, personal finance, and now you're settled in a nonprofit
Yeah.
that helps the everyday Canadian
Yeah.
figure out ways they can thrive financially. What was that transition a hard one to make? Because it didn't sound like you were looking for it.
I wasn't looking for it, and it actually wasn't hard because looking in the rearview mirror, my career makes so much sense to where I am now. Had I not started my career in a traditional corporate environment and learned the foundations of strategy and the foundational concepts of marketing, I wouldn't be able to do this job. Had I not spent so much time engaged in the business community and developing credibility as someone who interviewed CEOs all the time, I wouldn't be able to do this job. Had I not written a couple of books and been on CBC radio for years and years and years, week on week on week, and hosted a money show, I wouldn't have had the deep understanding of what our clients are facing every day. So I'm one of those people. Career has never been easy for me. Some people are like, they dance through their careers. For me, it's like being in a bumper car at a cheap carnival, like slamming around. What am I going to do next? Oh my God, I hate this. I want to do that. Bouncing around. But here I am now as a man of a certain age, and I do have a job that I love. And we're doing really, really meaningful work that's not being done
Yes.
anywhere else.
Yes, I can vouch for the fact that I've seen Credit Canada doing really amazing things.
Mm.
Um, from your help to for newcomers coming into Canada to financial literacy being front and center. to really advocating in the economic strategies that are being touted as, oh, this is so great. But then taking a magnifying glass to it and saying, well, is it really?
Mm,
And being the voice that challenges that from a professional standpoint and from the standpoint of the everyday person. Does
yeah,
this make sense? So
yeah.
you are here now. You are CEO of Credit Canada. Someone would say being the CEO and being the person who actually implements and is client facing, there is a great big chasm in between. How do you stay in touch with the needs of the client so that you can
Mm.
continue to deliver innovative programming that actually meets a need?
First thing I do, I still lead our programs. So, credit counseling has been around for a long period of time, but the work that we do in financial coaching has not been. It was a program that I introduced on arrival. It's based on the financial coaching in my books and all the work that I've done for years, and I still lead these programs. We have lots of other people who lead them, but I still lead them. So, I am in the room with people and engaging with people on what's happening right now in this moment. And there's nothing else that can replace that, because you really, to develop and retain a true empathy for what our clients and what Canadians are dealing with, it's just so helpful to be in the room and hear what they're dealing with. I'll give you an example. So I lead a financial coaching program. One of our participants, on paper, successful career woman, husband successful. She lost her job. He had a health issue. He lost his job. He had major surgery. And as a part of all those, that house of cards collapsing, they were left with an unmanageable level of debt. And so they came into our financial coaching program looking for help. What can we do? And we have a whole series of interventions and ways of support and different ways of thinking that we provide, grounded in community, holistic in nature. And at the end of the program, when she was talking about one of her biggest accomplishments, what she said was that she had advocated for herself and her husband with more tenacity and drive than she ever thought possible, including finding a nonprofit social service agency to cover her husband's prescription drugs that their provincial program did not cover, which was to the tune of $3,000 a month. So
Wow.
when you can engage with people and provide them with the spark to go and advocate for themselves, it is, well, of course, it's satisfying, but it's also so amazing to see what they can produce for themselves, what they can come up with, what the results that they can discover and find, which is not to say that there aren't a gazillion systemic problems holding people back, but there are also opportunities for them to really change what's within their circle of control. So I do that all the time, and our counselors are, we're counseling 10,000 people a year. It's a lot.
Yes, without a doubt. What I love about coaching is how it really empowers the person
Mm,
who is being coached. It requires them to want it. And when you combine their desire with the coach's mentorship, the coach's guidance, the
yeah,
coach's cha cha cheerleading, yes, I
yeah,
believe in you. I like to say, borrow before you embody. Sometimes they're so downtrodden, they don't
mm,
even see all that amazing potential inside them, but we can cheer them on. It's like, I see it,
yeah,
I believe it. You can use my cheers until you can cheer for
yeah.
yourself. So that
Yes,
story,
beautiful.
I'm sure it's one of many that
Yeah.
you would experience in your coaching. What would you say is, I guess, the most prevalent issue or issues that show up in a coaching interaction?
Self concept.
Mhm.
So we have an assertion that debt is not the problem. Debt's never the problem. Debt is the symptom.
Correct.
So if debt's the symptom, what's the problem? And then you've got a whole bunch of territory to cover there. So it could be mental health issues, ADHD, anxiety, depression, some sort of an addiction. It could be physical health. It could be job loss. It could be a lack of financial literacy. It certainly could be systemic issues. There's a whole bunch of things. And so, really, when we think about how do we engage in those sorts of things, we've got so much fodder there to support people in navigating their way through that.
Yeah, absolutely. And no one gets to pass the buck, but
No.
we get to identify what the contributors may be,
Yeah.
understand them, neutralize them where we can, eliminate them where we can, and I guess tap into, lock into that dream, that goal, that desire that this person has and strategize to making it happen.
Yeah.
You're speaking
Yeah.
my language here, Bruce. I'm like,
Yes.
I'm,
Well,
I'm
it,
a happy person.
yes. And the whole thing about self concept is that I think Canadians writ large relate to themselves as being unreliable, a disappointment, ineffective. Like there's a whole bunch of negative limiting beliefs that people have when they struggle with money. And in a coaching context, we are able to point out that that's not actually who they are. Might have been who they've been or how they've saw themselves in the past. But when you complete our financial coaching program, it's 6 weeks. 95% of our people complete the program. 95%. And it's intense. It's really
Yes.
intense. Our attendance is almost 100% for those 6 weeks. And so, what we point out at the last session is you may try and convince yourself and even convince me that you're not reliable, you're impulsive, you're incapable. And yet, that's not what showed up in this program. You were here on time every time. You did your homework every week. You called your accountability buddy every single Saturday. So, I request that you, as a participant, reorient how you see yourself. Because here's how you're showing up for me. How you're showing up for me is someone who is committed, engaged, and in action. And now just continue to do that. So I think that's a critical piece. I mentioned accountability. Every one of our participants in our coaching programs gets an accountability buddy. And they'll be like, but I don't know if I like this person. I don't care if you like them. That is not the point. The point of accountability buddy is not to become friends. It's to hold each other accountable to what you said you were going to do. It's very, very simple. And so it's such an incredible benefit for people to relate to their word in a different way. Like, oh, I used to just say, yeah, yeah, someday, maybe. And in the last weeks, I did everything I said I would. What happened?
I
And
know, who
what
is
would
this
be,
person?
yeah, who is this person? And what would be possible for you in your financial life if you just did that now until the end of time?
Yeah, I think that leans right back into community,
Yeah,
that accountability buddy, that someone cheering you on. Community, community, community.
yeah,
And in that space, amazing things happen. So
100%.
I I can just imagine the kind of results that you're seeing. You have been sharing financial literacy advice in one form or other over decades. I'm going to put it on there. You look great,
Yes.
Bruce, but
It's
it's
true.
been
I do look
decades.
great. I use you really want to ask how do I take care of my skin? So since my 20s, I have been using they don't call it oil of Olay anymore. They just call it Olay. So I have been using Olay Daily UV Protectant for years, which is why I look so young. Some people are listening to this audio only. You should really Google me. I look barely a day over 22, right? Yeah. Barely a
I
day over
know.
22. Yeah.
I know. You know what? Every esthetician is like, yes, tell them to use the UV
Moisturize,
protection.
for
Come
God's
on.
sakes.
Listen, you have some tips for us. You have lots of stuff that you're going to share, but we've kind of whittled it down to maybe three or four.
Yeah.
And I really want you to share some of those insights because I want you to help as many people as you can with your 4 steps that you need to take to get a handle on what you call mulala,
Yes.
mulala.
Ooh la
Okay,
la.
well, okay, let's do the mulala thing because it's in the
Yeah.
name of your book, it's in
Yeah.
the name of your podcast. It rolls off your tongue like you invented it.
Mm.
Where'd you get the mulala from?
The word just hit me like a thunderbolt. It just hit me like a thunderbolt. And of course, now that you hear it say, every time I say it, people roll their eyes or they giggle a little bit because it's ooh la la with an M.
That's right.
And the
That's right.
reason it's so fitting for me is I have always had a level of playfulness about me, even though I can be very serious and I know how to wear a tie and I went to business school and I'm like an intense personality. I'm also very playful. And I think anyone who's listened to me on CBC or SiriusXM for any length of time knows that I consider my role to be the Trojan horse for helping people get a handle on their money. Like, I will do whatever it takes for you to listen. So on City Line, I've been covered in slime. I've held goats, like anything. Because if we can get people's attention, then I can have a conversation that hopefully will unlock their own ability to transform their financial life. But I have to have their attention first. And so, yes, I do all sorts of things in that regard. And I think Moolah La is a great short form for we're not having a conversation that a traditional bank would have with you. There's nothing finger waggy about what I'm going to say. We're going to have some fun talking about your moolah la.
Yes, I love that finger waggy. Like, put your hand
Yeah.
down. Yes,
Yeah.
awesome. Okay, you've got 4 tips for us. Let's
Yeah.
start with number one. What you've got? How do we actually get a handle on this moolah?
Number one is context, creating a context for money. And the word context means the setting in which an event occurs. So everything occurs within a context, everything occurs within a setting. It's just the way that it is. So let's say you were going to walk into a room that's kind of like a living room, like a living room of a person of a certain age, an older person. There's a couch, there's some carpet. If this living room was the home of your grandmother that you had an extraordinary relationship with, your experience walking into that room would look and feel a particular way. What you would say and do would look and feel a particular way. If that room was instead not your grandmother's, but the receiving room of a funeral home, you would feel very different because who has passed, what were the circumstances of their passing, all those sorts of things. So the context makes an enormous difference, even if the couch is virtually the same. And for the most part, we never consider this question. So, in the absence of considering the question of context, we have what society puts on top of us and what our family of origin puts on top of us. Another way to say it is society and our family of origin tell us what our money is for. So, society is going to say your money is for stuff, your money is for retirement savings. Our family of origin is going to say some version of whatever it is. In my family of origin, money is for survival. You have to be so careful because if you misspend $1, then you will be exposed to a cataclysmic circumstance. Like this, my parents were raised in the Depression. Like my mom saved elastic bands and bread ties and, the wrapping paper at Christmas. We would have to recycle it for years and years and years. All those things about being in a home where my parents had grown up, where things were really constrained. And so the first tip is for people to take a breath and consider what would be a context for money that would be empowering for me, that would have me do all the things that I have to do to get a handle on my money. It's probably not going to be retirement or survival or stuff or all those sorts of things. What if money was for adventure, family, contribution, freedom, peace of mind, fun, legacy? There's some other paradigm that you could embrace that would have you be more excited about doing all the super boring, tedious things that you need to do to get a handle on your money. So I think it's critical that we start there because then you'll see that having a conversation about money is for sure about money. There's dollars and cents and there's a bank account and all that stuff. And having a conversation about money is not about money. Money's just an enabler. Money's just a tool. The conversation really is about adventure and freedom and comfort and beauty and all those amazing things. And you really have to master the dance that is that paradox of it's not about money, it's entirely about money. It's not entirely about money, it's about all those other things. It's a real paradox.
Yeah, it's about everything that money can do for you. It's
Yeah.
about it. I love the idea of considering context because not only does it give you another viewpoint, but it gives you a choice. It
Yeah.
actually allows you to select how you want money to interact with
Yeah.
you, What role do you want it to play, instead of being subjected to your family of origin story or society story. I think just with this first tip, we're already switching from a victim mentality or a victim position to
Yeah.
one of empowerment,
Yeah.
choice, and moving forward. So we could end here. We could end here because this is like,
I don't want to. I'm not done. I booked more time. We need to
all right,
continue.
all right, all right. Number two, Bruce, tell us more.
Number two is address the consequences of your behavior. So, for the most part, we are people as a species who put our hands over our ears, and we go, la, 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 la. I'm not listening. I'm not listening. I'm not listening. I have buried my head in the sand. I am paying no attention. And like, I know someone said you're supposed to pay off your credit card in full, but la, 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 la. And so the second tip is to look at your strengths and weaknesses when it comes to money. And we all have them, by the way, even me. Like, of course, you have them, I have them, we all have them. So if you think about things like income, debt repayment, spending, investing, being organized, taking action, communicating with financial advisors and kids and parents and spouses and all that, we've all got strengths and weaknesses. So look at the strengths and then look at the weaknesses and say, like, what is it that I am going to do about that? Because every weakness has a consequence. And those consequences could be tangible. Those consequences can be intangible. But here's the example I will give. Some of your listeners will not know what I'm talking about because it'll make me sound very old. But there was a time in which we did not wear seatbelts. So I remember being picked up from elementary school, like grade like 6 or so, and my friend Rob Greenhow, his mom, would come with a 2-door beige Omega, and she would open up one of those doors, and literally, I'm not kidding, literally 10 children would pile into the car. We had like markings on our forehead from being jammed against the ceiling. Like there was a texture of the felt on the top of the car, and you'd be like, because it was a 5-minute drive, who cares? But we did that because we were oblivious to the consequences of fatalities and fines. In this day and age, no one would do that. Like, I have a 15-year-old. If I heard that some other parent was driving my child around without wearing a seatbelt, I would go ballistic. But in the 80s, let's say, that's not the way that it was. So we are now becoming more present to or aware of the consequences of our behavior. And it's not to say, again, it's not finger waggy. It's not you're right, wrong, bad, or good. It's just to be clear that there is a connection to your action. So there is an outcome to what you're talking about that heretofore you might have been oblivious to.
Yeah, that awareness is priceless. I
Yeah.
mean, and the thing is, for better or worse, you're not going to unknow it because
Yeah.
we've lived the circumstances. If we look at the seatbelt example, unfortunately, irrevocably, families have been changed because of the decision to ignore a seatbelt. But
Yeah.
now that we know better, we expect to do better. So we've seen those circumstances unfold, and
Yeah.
it's up to us now to act on them. What's the price for not acting on it?
Yeah.
That's kind of dangerous, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So okay, so circumstances, that's number two, being aware of
Consequences. Consequences is
consequences.
number two.
Yes, being
Yeah.
aware of
Number
those
two.
consequences.
And
Definitely. Okay.
addressing them and addressing the consequences. So I'll give you one last little example. If you say my weakness is communication, the
Mhm.
consequence of that, and I'm going to just give an example here, is you feel suppressed in your marriage. You feel powerless. You feel all these things that you feel that are negative about that suppression of communication. And the potential scenario is you're headed towards the path of divorce.
Mhm.
So before you get to that point, address the consequences of your weakness in communicating with your spouse, AKA do something about it. Have a
Yeah.
conversation about it, because the consequences, tangibly, divorce is exceedingly expensive. Intangibly, it feels really bad for people who have walked that path. I have heard, I'm a kid whose parents got divorced. It's no fun.
Yeah.
So number 3, manage complexity. And I think this is one area where, so complexity is the state of being intricate or complicated. That's the definition of the word. We make money so complicated. And it does not have to be complicated. It's really quite simple. It's actually very, very simple. And there's lots of reasons why it sounds so complex, because, so many things in the industry have acronyms and it's very confusing. But a big part of my approach and our approach at Credit Canada is to get people to focus on the things that will make the very biggest difference. And the way that we do that is a model called the priority pyramid. So picture a triangle. And if you've someone who studied psychology, the Maslow's hierarchy of needs is the model that this is based on. And so the priority pyramid has levels. And the idea is that you only move up the level once you have accomplished that level. So you're not focusing on every single thing, you're focusing on one thing at a time. So the base level of the pyramid is cash flow. Am I earning more than I'm spending? If you are, you move up to the next level. If you aren't, you know exactly what you have to do. You don't have to pay attention to the news or interest rates or anything like that. You need to either increase income or cut spending or a bit of both.
Yeah.
If you are positive cash flow, you go to debt eradication. So consumer debt, credit card debt. If you have $1 outstanding on your credit card, that is all you have to focus on. And I'm evangelical about it and puritanical about it because, first of all, it gives you focus. But second of all, it is a guaranteed return. People are chasing, the stock market, or they're trying to figure out where to save $1 on laundry detergent. If you have anything outstanding on a credit card, it's a guaranteed return of whatever that rate of interest is. So it could be 19%, could be 29%. The third level of the pyramid is savings. So if you've eradicated your consumer debt, you do that first. You don't save for anything until you've eradicated credit card debt. Number 3 is savings for the things that really matter to you: retirement, kids' education, vacation, down payment on a car, like all those things. If you're doing that, then you move up to making the most of the tax savings vehicles out there: the First Home Savers Account, the TFSA, the RSP, the RESP, the RDSP. And then, and only then, do you move up to investing and optimizing returns. It's called the priority pyramid. I know I speak quickly, but you can look it up. And the real benefit that people talk about is, instead of having like 80 things on their to-do list, they've got one area to focus on. And that provides them such power in terms of focus.
Yes, and it allocates energy, oh
Yeah.
my goodness, to things that will actually create that immediate return, like you were saying. You don't know how many times I hear people coming, "Oh, can you tell me how to invest in cryptocurrency?" I'm like,
Yes.
"Huh? Really?"
I'm not even going to dignify that question. Yeah.
I have to put on my coaching face and not just have my jaw drop. I think part of it is this: I'm in such a desperate situation.
Yeah.
I want something that'll bail me out now. And unfortunately, it just further destabilizes. And that pyramid, that priority pyramid, I think it is so good to, like you said, get that focus in, and you know exactly what you're doing at each stage. This is what we're working on. Not only that, they know when they're ready to move on. It's
That's
not
it.
a moving target.
Yeah.
We're dealing with black and white, and these are where our efforts are going. So
Yeah.
I'm loving this priority
Yeah.
pyramid. I just might borrow it. I'm just telling
You
you.
100% borrow. And the other thing that I'd say is, through the course of one's life, you move up the pyramid, and then sometimes circumstances clobbers you and you fall back down to the bottom. And that's not fun. It's not nice. But you can work your way back up. It's not a one-way journey, unfortunately, right? And I think the thing that is so critical for us to reinforce in this conversation is, as much as I talk about being a force of nature, I want to really validate the circumstances that people find themselves in, the systemic barriers to so many different vulnerable populations in this country. And it really is, to use the word again, it's another paradox to say 100% there are things that you can do to get a handle on your money. And there are things that are making that exceedingly difficult for you. And I validate both those two truths.
Yeah, and they are both true. So we're going to acknowledge all that so that people know that they are seen, they are heard, and their circumstances may not all be of their making, but they can still be in an empowered position to take
Yes.
action, to correct it, to alleviate it, to rectify, and to hopefully thrive in their finances. So we've got three of your great tips. Number four and last, give it to me.
Create community.
Oh,
So
here we
we
are.
live in a world in which money is a taboo topic. We're not supposed to talk about it. It's inappropriate. Oh my gosh, if someone is suffering, we can't say anything. Well, how about let's not do that anymore? For
Yeah.
a couple of reasons. Number one is community is one of the most powerful uh, forces in humankind. It
Mhm.
provides support, ideas, and accountability. And I think for many people, not everybody, but for many people, when they think about their life and they look at the areas that work well for them, the areas that work well, community is a part of them. So maybe it's their faith, maybe it's their work, maybe it's parenting, maybe it's their immediate family, maybe it's their physical health, their mental health. I don't know. People participate in community in almost any area in which you want to develop yourself. You want to run a 5K, you want to become a better public speaker, you want to lose weight, you want to explore your spirituality. There are communities that are at the ready to provide the support, ideas, and accountability, except for personal
Mm.
finance,
Yep.
because there's this taboo. Now, there are some, and you and I are both real proponents about getting people to talk and engaging in community. But one of the things that we do in our financial coaching programs is the homework every single week is to talk to someone. Talk to
Mhm.
someone about their participation in the program, not about the numbers on their debt, not about anything specific or private in that way, but to get them to practice, to build the muscle memory of, oh, I'm doing this little program on getting a better handle on my money. It's really cool. We talked about goal setting. Amazing. And 9 times out of 10, the other person is going to say, well, what did you learn? Well, I learned that a goal is really powerful if it's smart, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time bound. And then we can really start to build momentum because communities are something that you can get from and give to. And as you think about your financial life, you can think about who could I get from? So who in my community is really good at budgeting? I don't know, or who's, someone who's got really good career success, and who could I give to? And this, when you think about people who are dealing with, for example, a cancer diagnosis, as a culture, we kind of know what to do. Like we kind of know that when they're in chemo, they're not going to be able to cook easily for themselves. And we need to organize some sort of meal train or some sort of way to keep them fed in that time. How do we find a way to be supportive of people in our community when they're dealing with a tough financial circumstance in a way that doesn't have them feel invalidated or embarrassed, but that we could say, hey, you know what? Can I just pick up your kids on Monday nights and like they can hang out with me for dinner in a couple hours? Because you know that that person wants to do a course at a community college to upskill so they can get a better job. Well, they can't afford the childcare, but you could take that off their hands and sort out the childcare yourself. So it is both what you can get from and give to.
Yes. You know what? I think the whole idea of community, if we can implement healthy environments where we can talk about money, then we can actually create great change where we support one another. And
Yeah.
the problem I see, at least one of the issues, is we're going back to the identities we take upon ourselves when we think we're not good with money.
Mm.
We take on these identities, and that creates shame, isolation. We don't want anyone to know this because we don't want people to think that we are all these things that we're saying. When we can let go of all these titles that are superimposed upon us because we happen to misstep with our money, we can be more open, I think, to
Yeah.
community. And we can not just help ourselves, like you said, we get to help each other. How do we do that though? I'm feeling like we're diving into deep psychological things because we're looking at generational cultural impacts here on
Yes.
listen, I can tell you honestly, like from I'm a good Christian girl. Oh boy, I'm a good Christian girl. And for the
Mm,
life of me, I had to figure out what this money is evil business they were talking about. And I had to understand it for myself. But it still creeps in because there's an identity that is very closely tied to not just Christianity, other spiritual dogmas as well, where money is not the best thing for you to have, but you should have it because we want you to contribute to our
mm.
offering plates. Like, what is going on? How do we start dismantling this thinking, or is that what we're doing? Is that what we're supposed to be doing, Bruce?
So what I would say, it's such a great question. What I would say is shrink the change. Because when we talk about dismantling, like I don't know, the patriarchy and like systemic racism and homophobia, like, oh my God, I just want to take a nap.
Yeah.
Because that just lives, it's overwhelming. So, what I would do is think about what is a small action that you could take that would be different than the action you took or didn't take last week or yesterday. So, for example, you're someone who's in a relationship with someone, maybe you're married, maybe you're not, and money's not like an easy conversation for you. So, the action you take is you say to your spouse, I'd love for us to have a conversation about money. I want to give you a heads up so I don't like throw you. And I'd like to talk about what our goals are. Great. And then the next thing I'd like to talk about is there a book? Like, could we both go to the library and grab 10 books off the shelf, flip through them, choose one, and let's just read it together over the course of the next month so that the actions you're taking are small? What we know is that actions start to alter both your results, but also your experience. So, if we talk about someone, let's use a simple health metaphor. You've got someone who's dealing with a significant weight gain and has a significant challenge altering their behavior to deal with that. We don't say we need to dismantle all the things. We'd say, I'd like you to go for a walk every single day for 5 minutes. And the person who's dealing with like having no exercise or whatever goes for a walk for 5 minutes. And then they're like, 5 minutes is not such a big deal. I'm going to go for a walk for 10 minutes. Great. And then we might layer in, as you think about how you eat, what about just starting to track you're not trying to cut down calories. You're not trying to do any of that. Just start tracking it. And as they start tracking their food, they realize, who wrote on my piece of paper? I didn't actually have 3 bags of chips this week. Oh, maybe I did. Okay, I'm not going to have 3 bags of chips this week. I'm going to have 1 bag of chips this week. Great. You should. I love chips. Chips are so good. So you start to have these actions that are small, but you take them consistently. And then your psyche starts to see the results. And then there's this virtuous circle that is starting to gather momentum versus the vicious circle that you were in before. So I think that's it. The other thing that we talk about a lot in coaching is it's about progress, not perfection. So don't try and move from, oh, I've got $15,000 in credit card debt to, I'm going to my condo in Cabo next week. That is a bridge too far. Instead, go from here's what I've got in credit card debt. And you know what? I'm going to, first of all, stop the increase in that credit card debt and ensure that I make my minimum payments every time, always from now and forever. So that's like a smaller action. You've chunked it, you've broken it down into smaller steps that you're going to be more likely to be successful at.
Yeah, and you can be more consistent with,
Yeah.
and not balk. Well, when I get overwhelmed, I curl up on the couch with a bag of Cheetos and nothing gets done.
Mm.
So I definitely would subscribe to small, consistent steps
Yeah.
within a plan that's going to move you in the direction of, because you don't have to go 0 to 100 today
Yeah.
for tomorrow, but certainly incremental, consistent change would work. These tips, I mean, each one on its own has the ability to really change someone's financial life. And I
Yeah.
thank you so much for sharing them. We can apply them today. I know guests are going to be scribbling down all the notes and asking themselves, what is that one thing they're going to implement?
Mm.
Any last tip? Any maybe one of your pithy little sayings? What Lee.
Okay, I'll give you I don't know if it's pithy. I'll tell you this. Um, I view the quality of my life as a function of the quality of the lives of those around me. And I take that, as playful as I am, I take that very, very seriously. So as people think about what is important to them, what values do they hold dear, I would look at how you are with money and point out for yourself the inconsistencies where it is inconsistent for you to have the financial circumstances or the financial behaviors that you have, where it's inconsistent with what you value deeply, deeply, deeply in your heart. And then over the course of the next year, work to resolve those inconsistencies.
Yeah, get in line, get
Yeah.
realigned so
Yeah.
that the ride is smooth
Yeah.
across all the facets of life. This was fantastic. I bet we have another episode in us there somewhere, Bruce.
I bet we do
There's so
too.
much to share. But I want to say thank you 100,000 times for doing this.
Mm.
Not only because I know you're busy, but because I know your insights have the capacity to create powerful change. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And please tell our guests where they can find you, your coaching, all of the resources, that priority pyramid, all of that good stuff.
Yeah.
Please share.
Well, they can just Google me or Credit Canada because there's just a gazillion things. Like I've been doing this for a long time. The number one resource is creditcanada.com. So Credit Canada, our vision is to transform the use of credit, to transform it. So we've got financial coaching, credit counseling, webinars, budgeting apps, lots of resources for newcomers, so many different things. That is the best place to find me. And I will say, first of all, you're welcome. And I liked you the moment that I met you. So when you finally asked me to come and be on your podcast, I was an immediate yes. And I'm so proud to know you and love the work that you are doing, walking a similar path alongside so many of us who are trying to make a difference for Canadians in this area.
Awesome, awesome. Well, we're going to keep doing what we're doing. And thanks again to Bruce Sellery for being here. Thank you for listening. And we will see you on the next episode of Catalyst Conversations. Toodles. Thank you for joining me today on Catalyst Conversations. I hope this episode sparked something powerful to help on your journey to building wealth confidently and unapologetically. If you loved today's conversation, be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. And if something resonated with you, I'd love to hear about it. Let's keep the conversation going. Until next time, keep moving toward your goals, stay empowered, and continue sparking change on your wealth journey. This is Hadriana, and you've been listening to Catalyst Conversations.